Welcome to our next episode of Masterclass, where we look at emerging tech and how emerging tech can be deployed at enterprise scale. Our season has been AI, and we have explored the topic of customer experience in the past. We've spoken to multiple people, we've also spoken to a few startups. And today's startup is Unthinking AI, and the CEO, Tina, is with me. I met Tina a few weeks ago at a conference in Dallas, and what struck me was the number of doors Tina opens on Anthik AI. A little bit about Tina. She's been for more than a decade in customer experience. She's had two or three startups up her sleeve. Unthink is not her first rodeo, it's probably her third or fourth rodeo, but I'll let Tina introduce herself. Tina, welcome. Welcome to Masterclass.
Thank you so much, Prashant. I appreciate being here, and it was really good meeting you last time, and I am very glad to be here. So, just a short introduction. I'm an entrepreneur by heart. I think I've been in the corporate for a long time, and then I left and started my companies. And the customer experience space is my favorite. We've developed a personalization, real-time personalization engine in the past, which we offered to large corporates as well as small businesses. We also developed one of the first shopping assistants on Google Voice a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago. And now my favorite topic is using generative AI and machine learning together to provide an awesome customer experience.
Fantastic, Tina. Thanks for coming on over here. When we met offline and we started talking about this topic, the number of doors you opened, what you showed us on stage when we met, when you spoke about the possibilities, it felt like there were two doors, and I'd love to explore both doors today.
Mhm.
I want to spend probably, I think we have enough to record for two episodes, so let's do two episodes. I want to focus our first episode on just the realm of possibilities, the future of what AI, Gen AI, and ML can do to a customer experience. And maybe the second episode we can talk about what are implementation challenges and how should organizations think about implementing something like this. And I love it because you said you came from the corporate world, and I also loved you said have started companies. I love the plural part of that. It's absolutely amazing, Tina. So maybe let's start by asking you the question that I ask my or every guest, just as an icebreaker.
Mhm.
How do you understand AI and Gen AI?
Okay. So I think AI is here to simplify lives, right? And so there are two pieces, right? So AI, there are two, like up to now, AI used to solve the problem of uh, predicting prediction based on large sets of data that you already have, and to pretty much take what you have and create something very simple out of it, right? That was up to now. Now with generative AI, there's a next level, which is basically creation. So this is amazing because you can not only analyze stuff and sit on lots of graphs, but you can also create stuff out of it, right? So that's the thing I'm really excited about: the creation and the analysis, and how they can basically feed into each other.
It was fantastic. And I think there was this book called Power and Prediction. And the previous avatar of that book was, and I'm blanking on the title, but it was saying that AI can be used for prediction and judgment. And then I think Gen AI hit the stands,
Yeah.
and now the new author says, well, it's not just about prediction and judging. To your point, it's about how do you create, how can you recreate, how can you generate, how can you personalize content. And I think what has happened, and we are almost coming up on 1 year after ChatGPT hit the stands,
Yes.
it's it's entered the mass imagination.
Yes, absolutely, totally. So I'll just give you like a small thing about the 1 year, right? So last year, when we were working with one of our customers, we said, you know what, you have so much content, and we're just going to create a sort of a virtual shop on your site, right? And he was like, a shop, okay, but which are the brands you have on board? So we weren't even sure because we had signed up with about 85 different brands, and we didn't know which of those brands would be relevant to the shop. So we said, okay, you know what? We just give us your content, and we'll figure out which brands and which products will match your site, right? After some time, what happened is we ran into a bottleneck. We found that there was not enough content on their site that actually needed those products. So there's the generative AI case, right? We were like, oops, we don't have enough content. And someone, we were researching and we're like, hey, we could actually help you create content first and then tie the content to the products. So it's really interesting how the generative AI takes the whole thing to a very different level.
True. Tina, maybe talk about your current company, Unthink, and what does Unthink do? And maybe as a second part, talk about, did you start with that mission, and has that mission changed now with Gen AI?
Yes, so the mission has not changed really, but Gen AI has really helped. So our mission at Unthink is to help brands get their products discovered, right? As you know, um, the customers are engaged on social media platforms, right? Whether it's TikTok, Instagram, and the numbers keep changing. X today, Threads tomorrow, so that there's no limit to the number of social media platforms, and customers are engaged there. They are also engaged on sites like Amazon, on search now, right? Now with Bing and Google, all of them competing to make search interesting, right? Customers are all sitting there. So what do the brands do? They seem to be relegated to the back. So our problem is we want to help the brands reach the customers in a way that's engaging exactly like a social media plus search would do. That's basically our mission.
And what would you call this? Would you call this brand promotion, product discovery? Would you use other words?
I would call it product discovery at the core,
Mm.
because the technology uh, helps enable that. And if I just call it promotion, then we would not be paying attention to conversion, right? Like a lot of times the problem is typically is that in a brand there are two siloed organizations, right? There's one which is like promotion, which is just brand awareness, and then
Mm.
there is probably another team completely separate that manages conversions. So we believe that the promotions and the conversions sort of ought to go together, because today's customer is so distracted that they need to know about the brand and fulfill their need at the same time. It's not like they keep knowing about the brand, and then tomorrow they're going to convert, because they're going to forget as soon as they leave the stage. Right? So we believe that the whole thing is about the attention span, and
Mm.
that's where the need is that the brand might get discovered and has to fulfill the intent exactly like at a very short interval.
You spoke about discovery, promotion, content. And can you just uh, unpack those three words for me and how they come together? Is one the superset of the other?
Yes, yes. So when okay, let's start from discovery. Right? How does the customer's life cycle start?
Right.
So today, when a customer wants something, what do? They go to Google search if they know what they want. If they want ideas, they go there, and it's an exploration, and then that finally leads to the brand. Right?
Yeah.
That's one way. The second way that they discover is they're already following a few social media influencers, and
Mm.
they're just on Instagram doing something else, and then boom, something comes that's interesting, and that leads them down to the whole, the path of buying something. So it's either initiated by an intent that's already there, or it's on the fly. So these are the two ways. So how do people discover products? It's through content, right?
Mm.
Because content is on social media, and that content is so engaging that they end up going there every day, right? So that's why it starts with content, in my view, right? The other piece is that they already have an intent, but the intent again has a context, and the context of the intent is, um, okay, it's Halloween time, right? October is Halloween time, and I need to plan something. So it always starts with either a content that's existing and that engages the customer, or there's an intent, and these two together become the start of the customer's funnel, and from there they start the discovery process. Now, the question is the brand going to be on the top of mind recall for the customers? Are they able to generate content just like a social media platform does? That's step
Mm,
one. And the other one is that when the customer does come to them by accident or through some other content, are they going to be able to immediately show what matches the customer wants? So that
mm.
literally two pieces, right? One is engage the customer, second is convert them. And I believe that if the moment that these two come together closely tied, the brand becomes really successful.
And you spoke about content and intent, and my mind's immediately going to Gen AI, saying
Yes,
that okay, at last now you have the possibility actually to
yes,
generate content in a way that it matches multiple types of intents. That's at least where my mind's going. Is this the right way of
exactly.
thinking, or is this?
Absolutely, absolutely on the mark. So that's exactly where I was going.
And what happens to companies which are digital agencies which are doing this today? Will they exist? Will they be replaced?
So I think I believe that every institution has its niche capability, right? So a digital agency has a lot of knowledge. They are the knowledge. Think about them as an expert system, right? And the agency knows they know brands, they know the customers, they know how to create content. So there's a lot of human expertise that is available with the agencies. So
Mm,
my belief is that if they are open to using AI and if they're able to use it the right way, they could leverage that expertise that they have to create content along with AI and feed that into an expert system that a brand can use to
mm.
serve the customer.
So, what would your definition of AI-driven product discovery be?
AI does so the first piece, like I said, is content, right? Like generation of content. So you help a content creator generate ideas and content really quickly and do this at scale, right? So instead of doing maybe like two blogs in a month, maybe I can do two blogs in a day, right? So
Mm,
the pace at which you can generate content, that's one. The second piece is the way that people search for products or the way that people discover products is not the way that products are tagged or classified by a brand.
mm, mm,
Because even though the brands know their customers really well through uh, lots of groundwork and studying analytics, looking at past search histories and stuff like that, it's impossible for a brand to know every possible way that somebody would search for their products, right? So I'll just take an example. Like let's talk about Valentine's Day, right?
mhm,
So Valentine's Day is a current theme, and there might be a lot of products in the brand's catalog that serve a Valentine's Day need because they may be red products, they may be decorations, they may be clothes, they may be gifts, there may be so many things. How is a brand going to be able to make sure that these products come up when someone just says, I want to buy a Valentine's Day gift or I want to be prepared for Valentine's Day? So, because they're not used to the customers expressing intent on their site, they're not prepared for that. So, the brands can keep classifying products as okay, color is red, occasion is blah, blah, blah. But the moment that the brand can tie in the natural way that people search for things, natural way that people express their intent to
mm.
the way that the products present themselves, that's where the AI comes in.
And do you think there's a difference in how this comes to play in B2C versus B2B? Are there any nuances?
No, I don't think so. I think it's the same thing.
Oh,
Exact. I think so because except that the scale is different, right? So, for example, in B2C, you have a lot of content. I when I say content, I can you even a product is a content, right? Because a product has a description and it has to be discovered. So think about a huge retailer that has like tens of millions of products versus a B2B company might have a smaller subset of offerings or services, right? So the scale, there's a huge difference in the scale and the variability between the two. Um, Also, depending on the vertical, B2C can have more impulse buying. For example, an end consumer, there's no limit to the number of shoes somebody can want. While in B2B, it might not be as frequent or as um, I guess, yeah, that. That
True.
that's the difference that I can say.
True. I think what also B2B does is it's a very complex buy, which means it's not one person buying, it's an entire team of roles buying. So it would be the
Yes.
procurement officer, it would be the head of that department, it would be the expert or SME. So do, do you think there's a nuance if you're trying to structure a B2B sale? Because now you're talking to multiple personas instead of one persona.
Yeah.
Does that make things easier or
So our expertise has always been in the B2C.
B2C?
So I would, I'm more like I can answer your question much better for B2C.
Right.
For
Yeah,
B2C, I think, yeah, I don't think I'm the, I would be able to comment really well on B2B because there are two differences, right? One is the impulsive nature, the variety of products, the number of stakeholders, like you said, the
mm,
time period for discussion, and also the amount of experts would be different, right?
mm,
Because in B2C, if anybody in the world can be an expert on how to purchase a
mm,
dress or how what is organic food or nutrition and stuff. So the scale is very different.
mm.
So that's where I see the main difference.
And when we just started today's conversation, you was talking about brand promotion being its own thing,
Yeah.
and that we should now start going towards product discovery because that's giving you much more. Is brand promotion still a thing? And how do you, if yes, how do you think that could be amplified by AI?
Yes, I think brand promotion is absolutely a thing because the first element um, of being the go-to place for a customer, right?
Mm,
So, like I said, social media, being as engaging as a social media site or as Google is today or search is, that's where brand promotions come in, right? So, if I am serving a niche audience, every brand has a niche, in I believe, right? Like there might be a brand who is the best in the world at serving their own niche. For example, I might be serving the best, let's say, I'll take athletic greens, right?
mm. Right.
Athletic greens is nutrition supplement, and it's loved by people who want to enhance their performance in the day. Right now, that brand has a certain knowledge and appeals the most to that segment of people. So, if this brand has to be known for what it's best at, right? It has to promote, and for being able to promote, it has to generate the right content in a way that people look for content, right? So for example, a brand should not just say, here's my product, buy it. They should say, they should talk about why it's important to even have a nutritious diet, like what's the connection between nutrition and mind or performance,
Mm,
and right? So those are the type of people that would be looking for answers, right? So it's like search engine optimization, right? Except it's like on steroids, right? Like the search engine used to be based on keywords where people search, like every brand would try to make sure that all the keywords that people search for are there in their product. Now it's like all the user questions that need to be answered have to be served by the brand. So
mm,
that's the shift between uh, yesterday's search engine optimization and today's, because that's how now the brand needs to appear in front of the customers.
how
Like
does
tomorrow,
yeah,
sorry, you
no, go ahead.
go. So, for example, let's say tomorrow, right? Google changes its algorithms because Google search is not going to be keyword search; it will be conversational search. Now, who's Google going to pull up when someone says, "What's the best nutrition supplement?" If I'm only taking one supplement, right? So now, suppose Athletic Greens as a company had all the answers to these questions, they would start ranking. So that's why it's really important that the brands have to promote themselves thinking about thinking about how the customer's gonna find them. That's a of course a very small piece of very small piece of the whole puzzle of promotions. The second piece I would say is if a brand can enroll an army of people to
Mm,
promote themselves. Now, the problem is that a regular person, right? Let's say, like, I know that a lot of brands have done this even 10, 15 years back, where they enroll like moms to promote some type of product, right?
yeah,
But a mom doesn't have time,
yeah.
right? So if you want to get the expertise of the regular customer or the regular person, you need to give them tools that will make the job easy. That's where AI comes in. right? So you give them the AI, you give them what you have, you give them the backing, and you give them incentives. And then this person who's got very strong expertise and a very strong connection to their own circle of influence can create very powerful content for you, because they don't the friction for creating the content is taken away. So that's where I feel the AI comes in for more.
Very interesting. If I put a Gen AI angle on
Yes.
a lens on what you just said, it feels
Yeah.
like there are two things happening. The first thing happening is, let's take your example of athletic greens. They're saying, let's start looking at what are the questions we should be uh, part of. I mean,
Yes.
which answer should be part of, and what are the questions which should be answered, right? So
Yes.
there's a lot of content generation happening based on that. So they could step back and say, okay, what are the 86 questions which should be answered, and you'd get those 86 questions, and then, okay, what should be the best answers for those questions, and you get that too. So you have Gen AI helping you at least as a start for all of this.
Yes.
The other lens seems to be someone like me, Prashant, looking and asking something like ChatGPT, saying, "Hey, what are the top offerings in mind, body, and health connections, and how should one even think about this?" And maybe now ChatGPT says, "Well, the best way to think about this is how you have breakfast." I'm just making stuff up.
Yes.
How you have breakfast, and it's intermittent fasting, and look at what Athletic Green says. Now, actually, what has happened is two things, right? So Gen AI has helped me to find athletic greens.
Yes.
Gen AI has helped athletic greens in this example to actually come up with content which feeds this engine. Feels like we are entering a new search and discovery, which is, to your point, so much more and so much beyond SEO.
Yes.
Is this the right way of understanding the world we are coming into for?
Yes, absolutely. And I believe that uh, it's like we are the possibility that AI is bringing up, the Gen AI has given is that every brand, every tiny entity can become like a Google or a Microsoft in their own niche. Right. So
Hmm.
we want the brands to be able to have their own version of their own filtered down version of a conversational experience with their customers, which serves their niche, right? So now their customers should come to them, because if they go to chat gpt might throw a lot of generic stuff.
Hmm?
It could lead into athletic greens once, like in the long term, but initially it's going to be like, again, all of them have to compete to be pulled up by the open AI, right, by the chat gpt or by Google search, right, or by Bing. So my point is that why can each of these brands not become the go-to place, and why doesn't the why can't the regular search, the regular customer interaction on that site become a much more what do you say, uh, engaging way of doing it?
Got you. How does your maybe just a quick plug for your firm? How
Yeah.
does Unthink help in all of what we've just spoken about for the last 15-20 minutes?
Yes. So we're looking at the two pillars, right? The content generation and then the search, right? So these are the two things that we discussed. That this is the ways people discover products. So let's start with content generation. So the first thing is we have a tool which a brand or retailer can use to
Mm,
offer to its content creators. These content creators can either be in-house within
mm,
their own teams, they can be influencer marketing agencies, they can be their store retail partners, they can be anybody, right? Because what we're doing is we're taking the catalogs, the hierarchical catalog structure that's hidden within the brand, outside into our platform, and creating an interface where the content creator can just ask for an idea, and
mhm,
then we have the generative AI layer that is going to be helping them create the content. And part two, it's going to help them pull the products that match the content and create sort of collections,
mm.
right? So now a content create the brand has an army potentially of content creators who are presenting their products in very, very different, unique ways, right? I'll give an example. So when we worked with one of the travel companies, we said, okay, let's do a campaign. And we went to 30, 35 creators, individuals who said, and told them, just write uh, some articles about packing ideas for your city, for when
Mhm.
people come to your city. So now across all the cities that were engaged, we were able to get content which was very, very different and unique. And all these became like part of the travel site's repository of content, right? And these and the interesting piece is that these are all people who don't take much time or don't have much time rather, right? We are trying to enable the even the smallest micro influencer who's got other things to do. So this completely shifts from the paradigm of you need a very big content team, you need to be doing content in cycles. You still need all that content, right? You still need the brand owned content because that serves a very different purpose. But you need user generated content or influencer generated content at scale, which presents the products in very different ways in much larger volumes. So that's the piece first. That's the content generation engine. The
Oh,
second engine is this becomes expert. This becomes serves as expert feedback into the AI, which now can serve a customer directly. So
mm,
now you have a search, which is like a AI chatbot on the website, and a customer can come and say, "How do I travel to Alaska in the summer? What's my packing list?" Right. So now this interface will first pull up the data from the existing content. If there is no content that serves it, then it will go and create from Gen AI, like it will create the internet from the internet, and it will serve the customer directly. So you have a content
mm.
pillar and you have a search pillar, and these two feed into each other continuously.
And therefore the title Unthink. So Unthink content and Unthink search, is that the
Exactly, exactly.
and wish you all the luck on all the best in this endeavor, because I'm sure I can see the promise in everything that you're talking about. I think you opened a new door as you were describing this, and that seems to be going beyond just the firm and the customer. As you spoke about customer generation, you said actually now customer content, sorry, content generation. Content generation seems to be not just something one firm does, but actually content itself could be
Yes.
crowdsourced beyond just influencers doing things. To how should one even think um, crowdsourcing and entering, letting the user enter the experience of creation of products and hyper personalization.
Yes. So I think there needs to be a little bit of a paradigm shift because brands want control, right? And rightly so, because brands don't want to be represented in the wrong way to their end users. So the brands have been typically very careful, protective about control. That they have let go a lot of that control over time because of social media and knowing that influencers do present their products, but there is still and so they have sort of eased in from that very hierarchical way to a point where they're like, okay, here I'm going to hire an agency, or
Mm.
social media influencers can go and create it on social media. But guess what's been happening? They've been giving all their content to Instagram and to all these big platforms, and they've been losing out. Right. So what I think is that if the moment that brands open up control and let that content reside on their own owned media, on their own platforms, that's when they start amassing that wealth of and becoming more and more engaging and important to the end customer.
Mm.
I don't know if I answered your question,
You did,
but
yeah,
yeah.
it. And I think you brought now more questions which are probably on how should an organization even think of doing this, and what are probably the implementation challenges they'll go to. But I guess that's for another episode. Tina, I think you've shown us multiple things today. You spoke to us about not just brand promotion but product discovery, and I'm sure just like me, our listeners have learned a lot by looking at product discovery through a new lens. You spoke about also how Gen AI and AI is helping exactly in these spaces, how it's all about intent versus content. You spoke about also how all of this happen, how this conversion and discovery is probably happening at the same time, how all of this can be crowdsourced, and how even a firm like Unthink is helping to do all of that. So this has been absolutely brilliant, Tina. It's wonderful. I, I, I'm slowly coming to the top of I think what should probably be our first episode. I'm hoping I can attract you into a second episode where I want to take everything that we've just spoken about in this first episode and then bring it into the context of a large enterprise. And maybe I'm getting a few questions from these large enterprises. They get all of this.
Yes.
They get all of this. They're just wondering how to go about implementing this. And they're throwing a few challenges my way, which I'd love to explore with you, Tina. But it's been a pleasure and hoping to see you on an episode two.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much. I really
Thanks.
appreciate that, and I look forward to that.
Likewise.